a husband needs to lay down his life for his wife. And as a response to that, then the wife should, then the wife respects the husband. So it's a really interesting verse there. And there's so many more that the Bible talks about just with them alone. You can move to the next one, please. We're talking about the family. Oh, here, I love this one. People, this one, I've never really heard this one preached too much. People who don't take care of their relatives, and especially their own families, have given up their faith. He's talking about Christians that do this. They are worse than someone who doesn't have faith in the Lord. That's a serious one. He's like, if you don't take care of your family, like, yeah, you can have a relationship with me, but if you're not taking care of your family, that's worse than if you would have, because you should know better, right? If you know God, you know that love, and if you've really been changed by that love and filled by it, you can't help but share that, right? And the number one benefactor of that, your relationship with God, has to be your family. So he's talking about here, if you skip them and you ignore them, you don't like that. God don't like that. You're worse than someone that never knew me, because they don't know any better, right? A person that doesn't know God doesn't know any better. So that's a really serious one right there. That's a serious one for Christians. So we talked about number one priority for your duties, love God, love others, was your family. God number one, family number two, and your community was number three. All right, your community was number three. Jesus, one of the last things he said to us before he left, after he died and resurrected, was, you will be my witnesses to his disciples in Jerusalem, where the city they lived, and all of Judea, the nation that they were a part of, Samaria, kind of like their neighbor, and we'll finish that one in a second. So that talks about, your relationship with your friends, your neighbors, your church, kind of what we're doing now. That relationship that we have is important, helping out, making a difference in the church. Your government, exactly what we did now. We were praying with government officials. The Bible has a bunch of verses that talk about how citizens are supposed to act, how government officials are responsible to God because he's given them his authority. And so a bunch there. We talked about the poor, and the needy. In our own city, we're responsible to kind of help them out. We're responsible to help them out, not just relying on policies to take care of that for us. We have to do something ourselves as well. That's the number three. And I think the next one was number four, which was, number four was the continuation of that verse was, be a witness in the city, in your nation, and to the ends of the earth. Okay. All of us have a responsibility, a duty to make a difference outside of where we are, where we live. Okay, that's, and if you don't got the money to physically go out and go to another country and help build shacks. I mean, I've seen them. I've gone on mission trips, especially just in Mexico, not too far off. And just people really, I've seen some really horrible conditions. I had friends, my brother, he went to Haiti. That was before the earthquake. And that was just, I couldn't imagine now. But it's, there are a lot of needs here in the city we're in the country we're in, but even in the world too. We have a responsibility there, and if you can't physically go, your money can't, even if it's $5 to some organization that feeds poor people in Africa, you're making a difference. You're making a difference, even if it's $5. And so we all have that responsibility to kind of go out and do something like that. I mean, me and my wife, we sponsor a child in Peru where we help, it's only like $35 a month, helping them to get clothes and education, stuff like that, doing your part as well. And I love this one here. It talks about God's heart for the world, why we have a duty for the world. He says, go out into all the earth, because when the good news that Jesus came, died for us, and has made a way for us to be restored back to God, when they know that, and when it's been preached all over the world, then the end will come. And then Jesus is going to come back and set things right, how it was supposed to have been since the beginning. And so the world matters to God. The world matters to God. Next slide, please. So those are our four priorities. Now, how do we know when God is restored? Because we're talking about restoring God in our hearts. And how do we know that that's been restored and we're good? Well, we see it in the fruits of our lives. Okay, and the fruits are our actions. If we're good from the inside, that stuff in the inside comes out. Okay, like food comes in, food comes out, same thing. Okay, and when that type of stuff, when God's in the inside and he's right, that comes out in your actions. A bitter person is going to be what? A bitter person in deep inside their heart that's unforgiving, that doesn't like themselves. How are they going to be towards other people? They're going to be bitter to somebody else, right? They're going to pass that on to you, and that's how they're going to be. But a happy person inside, what? Is going to make you happy. You ever had that type of person that you just hang out with them for 5 seconds and they just brighten your day? Whether it just be a smile or just they're who they are. It just makes you feel good. And I'm pretty sure you can all think of somebody that within 2 minutes of just being with them, you're feeling like, oh my God, you just feel so drained and down, right? See, that's what your actions make a difference and kind of impact people like that. May impact people. Next slide, please. And so here, Jesus was talking about that good tree, because if the tree is good, then the fruits are good. If the inside's good, then your actions are good. And Jesus talked about that. I'm going to just hang for here a second. John 15:5, God says, I am the vine, I'm the tree, I'm the main part. You are the branches. If you stay joined to me and I stay joined to you, then you will produce lots of fruit. But you cannot do anything without me. Obviously, for an orange tree, for that branch to shoot out some oranges, has to be connected to the tree. You just can't break the branch, throw it on the ground, and expect it still making oranges like that, right? So this is a relationship he's talking about. When you're connected to me, when you stay joined to me, when you have a relationship with me, Jesus says, and I have a relationship with you, the fruits automatically come out. Because when we're connected to him, he's the source, of life and of joy and love. When we're pulling all of, who we are out of him, those fruits come out. It's a relationship. And so what are those fruits? What are those fruits that Jesus is talking about? Are they different kinds, and what is it? Well, it's really clear. It's actually, this is on the back of your bulletin as well, so you guys can have it and take it home and read it. But Galatians 5:22 says, well, the Holy Spirit, when he's inside of you, when God's Spirit is inside of you, he produces the fruits of your lives. And the fruits are these: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. There is no law against these. These are the types of fruit that come out. Notice they're all positive fruits, right? They're all positive fruits. These are the actions out of, when you have a relationship with God, this is the type of life that people should recognize you by. Now, granted, no one's perfect, Am I always patient with, my wife? No. Sometimes I'll kind of snap a little bit or whatever, and depending on how having a bad day or not. Am I always kind to people that cut me off in traffic? I try to, but for the most part, yeah. But, we're not perfect, right? Because sometimes we forget, and if we don't take care of that number one priority and our number one duty to love God and have that relationship with God, you kind of tend to be separated. And when you're not separated to that source of life, what happens to the branch? It starts to wither away, right? It starts to wither away. But God's faithful enough and he's so gracious that every time you come back to him, he connects you right back. You're humble and you ask for forgiveness and you make a commitment to live a better life. He connects you right back, and then he helps to restore these things. There's things in our life, just like a farmer has to prune branches to make the fruits grow. Same thing. God has to do that with us. For us to produce that fruit, sometimes he has to prune either attitudes or ideas or areas in our lives, habits that we have. He has to prune those things that cause the opposite of this fruit. He has to get those out, because maybe that's kind of keeping us. Maybe if I'm prideful, that's going to keep me from being, really maybe kind to somebody or really loving if I'm prideful. So he has to cut that out, prune that out. So next slide, please. So watch. So if a fruit, so here's a picture of it. So Jesus the tree, us the branches, and then out of that relationship that we have, being connected with him, we produce fruits. And all those fruits are values and principles that, we're grounded in. That's what, Pastor was talking about restoring these values that we used to have as a whole, as a country, right? Restoring these. So I believe this is the next slide. So, because if somebody has a good fruit, exactly. Good tree, good fruit, right? Makes you happy, right? If fruits are a good one like that, I love oranges. A good one like that, right, is full of what? Vitamins, minerals, and somebody eats it, it's going to make them, if it's really cold, I like them right out of the fridge, nice and cold, right? And so when you eat it like that, it makes me feel good, right? I'm probably refreshed. I got my vitamins for the day, got my vitamin C, so I'm feeling good. But if the fruit's bad, right, if somebody hands you a bad fruit, it's going to make you feel a little funky, right? If it's gone bad or it's starting to be moldy, right, you're probably going to get a real bad stomach ache, probably going to be on the toilet for a little bit, right, depending. Or, if it's that bad, you're going to feel pretty sick, and who knows, if you catch a bad enough infection, right, you might die. It's a bad fruit, right? And you know what? That bad fruit, the values that we show in our lives, that shapes the health of all the relationships.